Everybody knows that King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla Parker Bowles have been under a lot of heat from the public as they start a new chapter in their relationship. During Charles's marriage to Princess Diana, their affair became public knowledge, leading to their most notable scandal. Nevertheless, shocking revelations continued beyond this point. Come with us as we reveal the betrayal of King Charles by Queen Camilla. Keep watching as we reveal the leaked truths about King Charles that Queen Camilla revealed. The twisted royal love story. The fact that Charles was already seeing Camilla when he met Diana further complicates their royal courtship and marriage. The plot has all the makings of a fairy tale, but there are unexpected turns along the way. Charles first laid eyes on Camilla in 1970, on a brisk afternoon at a polo match in Windsor Great Park. Some have noted that Camilla's first comment helped break the ice by implying that the two of them had something in common, that their great-grandmothers had been mistresses of each other's great-great-grandfathers. Envision beginning a discussion in such a manner. The other person's great-great-grandfather supposedly had Camilla as his mistress, according to historians. The viewpoints of historians vary, nevertheless. Some think Lucia Santa Cruz, a mutual acquaintance, was the one who introduced them. It didn't matter how it happened. The two quickly became romantically involved. True love blossomed between Charles and Camilla. They appeared content and spent a great deal of time together. Unfortunately, fate intervened and life took a different turn. As soon as Charles was ordered to join the Royal Navy, their romance came to a sudden halt. A major life decision was taken by Camilla during this separation in 1973 when she wed Andrew Parker Bowles, who had dated Princess Anne, Charles's sister. Even after Camilla tied the knot, she and Charles maintained their friendship. Charles went so far as to be Tom, Camilla's son, a godfather. Did Charles ever attempt to halt Camilla's wedding, you may ask? So, apparently, he tried one final thing. Seeing the marriage of someone you care about must have been quite difficult. Things are about to get interesting from here on out. Sarah Spencer was Princess Diana's sister, and Charles had an affair with her in 1977 before he met the famed Princess Diana. Unfortunately, their romance came to a sudden stop when Sarah divulged too much personal information to the press, including her thoughts on marrying royalty and her issues with mental health. In that case, how did Diana factor in? Charles, I am grateful. Regarding Sarah. That Sarah who dated Charles? Yeah, that's Sarah. At Althorpe House, their family's ancient home, she played matchmaker by introducing Charles to Diana, her younger sister. Charles was on a pheasant hunting trip when he was here. The royal family almost orchestrated Charles and Diana's romance. Charles felt immense pressure to settle down and get married by the late 1970s. Introducing Diana Spencer, a fresh face in the realm of royal dramas who is young, demure, and seems ideal for the position of princess. Even after tying the knot with Diana, Charles's feelings for Camilla appeared to remain unresolved. Their early years together were joyous, in sharp contrast to Charles's more difficult years. No amount of time could ever erase the imprint that Charles's first experience with love had on him. All of Camilla's secrets regarding Charles were revealed years later. But first, let's delve more into the narrative of Charles and Diana. The early years of Charles and Diana's romance. From their uncomfortable courtship to their eventual beautiful royal partnership, Charles and Diana's story is a classic example of a youthful romance blossoming into a love story. Diana was a carefree 16-year-old schoolgirl in November 1977, all giggling and full of teen energy. However, at the age of 28, Charles was already a fully fledged member of the royal family. We previously established that Diana's sister Sarah, who had dated Charles, was instrumental in bringing the two together at Althorpe, the family house. The arrival of Charles, a real-life prince, must have been quite the buzz at dinner. Charles was captivated by Diana's infectious personality, which she subsequently described as leaving quite an impression. After supper, he took it a step further by asking her to the dance, officially introducing them. The year was 1978. and Diana was one of the invited guests for Charles's Buckingham Palace 30th birthday party. Envision Diana, who was only a teenager at the time, making her way through the glitz and glamour of a royal and dignitary-filled dance. 2 years later, in 1980, they had their next major encounter at a home party hosted by a friend. Diana witnessed a side of Charles that was hidden from the public eye, and the tragic tragedy of Lord Mountbatten's assassination had just disturbed him. Expressing her profound empathy for his suffering touched a chord with him. She spoke to him about how lonely he looked and how unhealthy it was for him to be alone. He needs to be taken care of by someone. A watershed moment occurred at that time of true concern and compassion. As a result, they became closer, and Charles saw a reassuring side of Diana he hadn't known he needed. Royal family members extended an invitation to Diana to stay at Balmoral that same year. A lot was at stake here, like going through a family screening. Diana bewitched everyone she met as she effortlessly navigated the countryside and even taught Charles how to fish. Diana was immediately the object of intense public scrutiny once the paparazzi learned of their blossoming romance. After a snapshot of her at her kindergarten job accidentally revealed more of her than intended due to the sun backlighting her skirt, the media couldn't get enough of her. In his reflection on the event, Charles made the observation that, although he was aware of Diana's good legs, he had not anticipated their extraordinary beauty. Perhaps a little naughty, but it demonstrated how their relationship was evolving from serious to flirtatious. Prince Philip felt Charles needed to make a choice by January 1981 due to the media circus that had engulfed them. To save Diana's reputation, he wrote Charles a letter that served as a royal nudge to either propose to her or quit the relationship. Charles mistook it for an order, the wedding of the century. When Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer's engagement was announced in February 1981, it wasn't just the result of a whirlwind romance. So, on February 6, 1981, Charles proposed to Diana, and she, of course, said yes. This was a very important royal engagement, complete with all the pressure and expectations you might imagine. A few weeks after the proposal, the couple sat down for a televised interview. It was all very charming, until a seemingly simple question threw a shadow over their sunny news. When asked if they were in love, Diana quickly replied affirmatively. However, Charles added a more ambiguous comment questioning what being in love actually means. This response might have raised a few eyebrows, or perhaps back then it was chalked up to royal aloofness. Fast forward to July 29, 1981, the day of the royal wedding. St. Paul's Cathedral in London was the stage and the world was the audience, with an estimated 750 million people watching. Diana appeared in a spectacular ivory silk gown with a 25-foot-long train, the longest any British royal bride had worn. Despite her grace, Diana was understandably nervous. She even jumbled Charles's names during the vows, calling him Philip Charles instead of Charles Philip. The grandeur of the wedding was undeniable. Yet, beneath the spectacle, there were signs that the fairy tale was weighted with very real pressures. Diana and Charles had only met 13 times in person before he proposed. Imagine that, deciding to marry someone after just 13 meetings. The honeymoon period following their nuptials should have been filled with love and joy. Instead, it turned out to be less than idyllic. The couple spent their days analyzing books by Charles's favorite author, Lawrence van der Post, a far cry from the usual newlywed bliss. Diana shared in tapes for a biography that by the second day, her hopes had been slashed. She felt exhausted and emotionally drained, not from bliss, but from the strain of adapting to her new royal role. Looking back, the engagement and the wedding were both spectacular and somber. They were events marked by both celebration and challenge, watched by millions who only saw the surface glitter and not the underlying struggles. Some of you may also remember that despite Charles and Camilla's dating history, she still made the royal wedding's guest list. Most likely because of her husband Andrew Parker Bowles's role as the commanding officer of the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment. So at this point, both Charles and Camilla were married to other people, and it seemed the fire between them had died. But soon, royal secrets would emerge out of the fairy tale. Diana just wasn't into the royal frenzy. There was an air of impending doom surrounding Diana's life the moment she entered the royal limelight. Underneath all the glitz and glitter, though, was a world of hardship, pain, and personal struggles. In this in-depth look at Princess Diana's troubled marriage to Prince Charles, we will examine her battles with mental illness, the public scandals that rocked her marriage, and the revelations that characterized it. Even though she was just 19 years old, Diana was whisked away from her modest flat share in London and plunged into the secluded opulence of Buckingham Palace. Going from being a carefree teenager to a public figure who was always being watched was a real change. Penny Junor, who wrote a biography of the princess, claims that the tremendous demands of her new royal role caused the formerly lively girl known at Balmoral to quickly become overwhelmed, exhibiting symptoms of anguish and jealousy. Having her personal issues brought into the public made them worse. An illness that frequently reveals deeper emotional distress, Diana battled bulimia. According to Penny Junor, Diana's mental health issues stem from a troubled upbringing precipitated by her parents' dissatisfied marriage. Thus, this was about more than just her relationship with food. Bulimia, according to Diana herself, was a hidden illness that began as a frantic search for solace but ended in extreme shame and additional mental anguish. As tragic as Diana's story was overall, the night before her wedding was among the most wrenching parts. Envision yourself marrying someone just to find out they've said they don't love you. Even though their wedding was supposed to be a joyful and hopeful occasion, Diana's astrologer claims that Charles made this heartbreaking disclosure right before the ceremony. They were already having relationship problems before their lingering ties to previous relationships made matters worse. Charles had meant to give Camilla Parker Bowles a bracelet that Diana found just before their wedding. The initials G and F, which are nicknames for each other, were engraved on the bracelet. The revelation came when Diana, along with the public, was investigating her life in great detail. It was just the start, though. While speaking with Martin Bashir in 1995, Diana revealed her difficulties with bulimia and feelings of inadequacy in an open and honest manner. The interview shed light on Diana's tremendous loneliness and distress, showcasing her courage in publicly confronting such personal demons, even though its acquisition was contentious. Hidden behind the smiles and royal responsibilities was a lady who had to overcome immense emotional obstacles, struggle for her identity, and confront a marriage that started with a devastatingly honest confession. An intricate web of emotions between Charles, Camilla, and Diana, ignited by the bracelet Diana discovered, set in motion a chain reaction that culminated in their divorce. While it was said that Camilla and Charles had not communicated for 5 years, the truth was far different, even though she was a wedding guest. The inevitable revelation of the truth was imminent, and it would not be an attractive sight. So let's go back in time before this whole sorry state of affairs. The marriage of Charles and Diana appeared idyllic from the outside, but things were far from fairy tale within the palace. Charles had a past with the dynamic Camilla Parker Bowles, whom he had met in the 1970s through a mutual acquaintance. Lady Diana Spencer entered the picture as a young, aristocratic woman who seemed to be unprepared for the responsibilities that would soon accompany her position as queen, but they hit it off right away. After all this time has passed, in 1981, Charles and Diana had a lavish royal wedding, the unexpected turn of events. Not content to only observe, Camilla was present amidst the multitude of guests. Even though the radiant bride had no idea, a royal scandal's emotional foundation had already been set. After all the enchantment faded, Diana had a rude awakening to the fact that her marriage was loveless. She had a hard time feeling neglected and alone, and Charles appeared cold and uncaring. Shortly after, Diana began to suspect that Charles was unfaithful. Then the bombshell. She discovered a bracelet that Charles had given to Camilla, which she had carefully hidden, but not sufficiently. Just before his wedding to Diana, he was handed what was supposed to be a secret token. There is no way around the terrible timing. Charles gave Diana nothing but dismissals and excuses when she confronted him, but hints like a phone call and a floral arrangement hinted that this was no run-of-the-mill relationship. Public knowledge of the royal marriage's disintegration was growing. Things were at an all-time high by 1989. Even Diana was aware that Charles and Camilla had rekindled their dormant romance. Eventually, Diana had enough. Here we have the ideal setting for a royal showdown. Camilla and Diana are both invited to a birthday party. Getting up the nerve to approach Camilla, Diana wanted to have a discussion. Anxieties pervaded the room as Diana spilled the beans to Camilla, making it clear that she knew everything going on between her and Charles. As if taken aback but unfazed, Camilla calmly replied to Diana's statement that she had 2 lovely children, all the men in the world who wanted to be with her, and that she had everything else a woman could desire. Even though she was crushed, Diana only wanted to tell her husband that she loved him. But sadly, that was never going to happen. Not everything was miraculously resolved by the confrontation. Defeating her enemy was an uphill struggle. Diana knew it. With poise, she concluded the talk, leaving Camilla with the painful reminder that she should not be treated like an idiot because she was aware of what was happening, regardless of the challenges they might be experiencing. Aristocratic splits and plots. It was in the late 1980s that the fairy tale veneer of Prince Charles and Princess Diana's marriage started to crumble, setting the stage for all this turmoil. The two were living very separately by 1986. Even though their romance had never truly cooled off, Charles continued spending time with his ex-girlfriend Camilla Parker Bowles. Following this, in December 1992, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom announced the official separation of Charles and Diana on television. Later, in the summer of 1994, something truly revolutionary happened. In an interview that aired on television, Charles acknowledged having an affair and came across as cold and distant towards Diana and his sons. Dimbleby was the interview host. As a result of the uproar this interview caused, Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's husband, decided to seek a divorce. In a flash, the dominoes began tumbling. The now famous Panorama interview, which Diana had in November 1995, put her in the limelight. "With 3 of us in this marriage, it got a little crowded," she said, dropping the famous remark. The Queen's patience was finally worn thin by this, and she proposed that Charles and Diana divorce immediately. They finalized their divorce proceedings in August 1996. The plot, however, becomes somewhat gloomy. A horrific automobile accident in Paris in 1997 took Diana's life, barely a year after her divorce. Just 36 years old she was. As she tried to get away from the cameras, her automobile collided in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Everyone involved, her friend Dodi Fayed, the driver Henry Paul, and herself, died in the collision. The sole survivor was her severely wounded bodyguard. This is where the waters start to get muddy. Some speculated that the collision may have been more than a tragic accident. Smash that like button and turn on post notification for more thrilling videos like this.